want you to imagine that you are my boss.
I have power. I am responsible for how I use that power.
If a leader doesn't care about whether they're abusing their power, it can be because they're scared.
Leaders will lead how they were led. So if no one's ever shown them or taught them or given them a way to think of it differently, then that's how they'll show up.
You can turn up the heat on control and fear, and you will get short-term results. While you're getting those short-term results, that person is on LinkedIn.
Ask people. You can still guide them. You can still say, this is the way I want this to be done. But ask people before you tell them. If nothing, it's respectful.
If you want to go beyond fear and control, what are their drivers? What matters to them?
Be responsible with your power.
I want you to imagine that you are my boss.
I like this game.
I knew you'd like this. Okay. And imagine that you want me to do something and you want me to do it your way. How would you do that?
All right, I'm your boss. I want you to do something my way. I would tell you what I want. Yeah, I guess I would compel you to see it my way.
You would compel me. Yeah. So now turn up the heat on that. Imagine that you are a bad boss. Do you still like this game?
Impossible. I can't imagine. Sorry. There are limits to my imagination.
But imagine that you're a bad boss and you want to control my actions. What are some things you might do?
Oh, I mean, yeah, lay down the law, manipulate you, threaten you. Yeah, am I sort of heading in the right direction here?
Yeah, we know all this.
Make rules, or make rules that you have to obey. You have to obey
Absolutely.
my rules. Okay.
Right. Yeah, well, you would exert control and you'd probably try to scare me a little bit or a lot. Right? And so we know this from all the research that it does work for a little while to rule from power and fear. You can get immediate results. And then what happens?
Yes. Got you. All right. So power and responsibility.
Yes. Yes. Because leaders have power, whether they want to accept it or not, whether they want to be in power or not, they have power. They have often more power than they know. And because they're not really conscious about it, there is often a tendency to abuse that power.
I think the word responsibility is really key. I have power. I am responsible for how I use that power. And a lot of leaders either don't know that they have responsibility for it, or more sadly, in a way, they don't really care about their responsibility for how they use it.
Right. They often don't care. And I would have a little bit of compassion for the why. Because a lot of times if a leader doesn't care about whether they're abusing their power, it can be because they're scared, because their boss is abusing power, because they have to hit their numbers, their job might be on the line. So there might be reasons why people would step out of sanity in a relationship and go abuse their power.
Yeah. I think also leaders will lead how they were led. So if no one's ever shown them or taught them or given them a way to think of it differently, then that's how they'll show up. So maybe we can help change that narrative a little bit in our conversation today.
Absolutely. Well, I thought it would be fun to share some stories. I mean, these stories sometimes have a dark edge to them, but there are plenty of times when a leader exerting their power doesn't work, and we can have a laugh about it. So Are you up for a little bit of playing around with this?
I'm up for a laugh.
All right. Okay. Well, you can imagine. So if I give you a scenario or you give me a scenario, we can probably predict how it turns out. And I'll tell you, all these scenarios were pulled from Reddit. Reddit's like one of the best places to read horrifying stories of people being awful to each other. Sometimes in true devastating fashion, and sometimes kind of funny. So we'll look there first.
Okay.
So Imagine you got a boss who insists on being copied on every single email.
Mm.
What happens?
I had a boss like this. What happens? Well, so many things. I think if you're the person who's now required to copy the boss on everything, there's that sort of added layer of having to double think, double check, triple check everything I'm doing and saying because I know somehow it's going through the boss's mailbox and likely to be read by them. So it creates a little fear over the potential impact. So I think that's one. The other one is on the other side. I mean, what kind of manager has time to actually go through these things? So I think what quickly happens is bottleneck.
Yeah. Well, and exactly. So either the boss doesn't read all those emails because there's no one who could, and things back up, or they do read all the emails and they don't get any other work done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and that's exactly how it turned out in that story.
That was my boss too at the
That
time.
was your boss too. Got overwhelmed.
Got overwhelmed and basically just spent most of her time responding to the emails that
Yeah.
we were having to copy her on and not actually getting anything done beyond that. It was very, very micromanaging. So yeah, not a good outcome, and
Yeah.
doesn't inspire any confidence in the team at all. People are just waiting, looking for something else. So yeah, a complete loss.
And what might be the mindset of that person? Like, why would a boss say, okay, I need to be CC'd on everything?
This was a really long time ago. When I think about it today, I think it was just straight up fear. I think it was
Yeah.
straight up. She did not really know what she was doing. She probably imagined that exerting that kind of power, in quotation marks, was the thing to do as a boss. I don't really know, but I would say it came from fear. That would be my best guess, would be that there was some insecurity about the status or the role. And so controlling everything gave a sense of sort of a warped sense of power. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, I did work with someone like this for a while. Uh, he was new in the role. He was heading a very large organization, and he insisted that everything go through him. He didn't have the capacity, and so everything bottlenecked, just as you said. And if I reflect on the why of it, probably he didn't trust anyone but himself. So, this is where the deep psychology of some leaders ends up controlling the entire operation. It sure did in this case. If this person grows up learning that he can only trust himself and no one else, you're going to get that level of control, and everyone pays the price, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm another one for you. Let's see what. No overtime at all. So I'm
Okay.
your boss.
Yeah.
You're part of a team, and I say no more overtime. Actually, gosh, you know what? Like, I'm not joking. I've also lived this one. I'll come
Yeah.
back to that. No overtime at all.
Right.
How do you imagine that's going to go?
Okay. So, first of all, I think the reason it shows up is because the company's like, we don't have budget for overtime. Stop letting people work overtime. Right. And so then you're going to have people who are going to go, okay, then I will only work during designated hours. I will not be available after hours for calls or emails or anything. And so that's what it is. A person's probably only working their 8 hours, and that is it, and nothing more ever.
Inevitably, the whole thing falls apart because the structure has no relationship to the needs of the work. So if the work needs to be done, the work needs to be done. If the structure isn't allowing it, then you need to find another way to handle your KPIs. The example I was thinking of when
Mm,
when I quoted it, I was like, "Wow, I lived through all these things." It
yeah.
was a long time ago, but at the time, I worked in a country where, up to a certain rank, you were allowed to claim. I don't remember what it was. Something like 40 hours of overtime a month was within a certain boundary. So this is one of those structures, right? The structure said each employee basically is entitled to up to 10 hours of overtime a week. Guess what? Everybody on my team did exactly 10 hours of overtime a week
Right.
because basically they were getting an extra week pay. And at a certain point, the boss is like, there's too much overtime on your team. Well, what do we do? right? You're basically asking everybody to take a 20% pay cut. So the structure allowed it, but it had a rule, and everybody flexed to the max of the rule, and everybody effectively got a 20% bonus every month, which was great until the organization decided to take it away. So what happens? They take it away. People do exactly what you said, right? They do their 8 hours or 7.8 hours, I think it was at the time, and they go home. Work piles up, work doesn't get done, efficiency drops pretty dramatically. People are very unhappy. So they've had a pay cut and they can't get their work done anymore. Good
Yeah.
move.
It does remind me of, well, when I first started as an IT consultant, back when I was doing that work, I worked for a company that had an interesting incentive. For each service call I went on, I had I had a flat fee, and that flat fee covered up to 2 hours of me being there. If I could get the customer to let me stay past the 2 hours, I started getting double.
Oh,
So I had a very strong incentive to go slow
IT.
and get the customer to go down some rabbit holes with me so that we could use a lot of time.
Okay, I have an IT consultant joke now. Can I check this out?
Yeah.
Why does every IT consultant type really slowly? Okay, maybe that wasn't such a good joke, but it would explain a lot, right? Yeah. So yeah. So
Yeah.
you have an incentive, if essentially you have an incentive to be slow and inefficient in order to
Yes,
get a bit more money. Interesting.
I did at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And then, of course, when I worked for myself, it was the opposite. I was like, let's get the heck out of there. Right. So, yeah, it was the
You,
opposite.
you can tell us you became a speed typer.
Yeah. I did everything fast. Well, I wasn't doing a lot of typing, that was never my thing.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
speaking of those days, um, imagine the scenario where you have a boss that is threatened by people with knowledge and experience. So if this boss is like suffering from some feelings of inadequacy and people with knowledge and experience, seem superior, uh, seem like they maybe are better positioned, you might want to get rid of them. And a lot of bosses do. A lot of bosses come into a new company. The first thing they do is, who knows the most here? Let's get rid of them. Because they know people with knowledge have power.
True story.
And yeah, a true story. Like I was, and there were plenty of times when I was the IT guy, and if new management came in, they'd be like, "Yeah, get rid of the IT guy." And I plenty of times I'd be like, "Excuse me, do you guys want to know the password?" I guess, okay, never mind. Bye. Do you want to know how to get into the server? Okay, I guess you don't. Okay, see ya. I guess I'm out of here. Yeah, it was
Wow,
intense.
that's wild.
Yeah.
It's funny because I mean this definitely shows up in organizations, but also in politics, right? We see this so often now,
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure.
So what's going on there? What's the drive to get rid of the expert?
Well, can I tell you one of the things that ends up happening afterward?
Yeah.
So after this boss gets rid of whoever these experts are, and in this case, when I'm the expert, oftentimes I'd have employees calling me on the sly, like days or weeks later, like,
Mm.
could you come in? I'm like, you guys fired me. Well, could you at least send us all the passwords? I'm like, why? I mean, for what? Are you going to pay me? No, we can't. We can't pay you because they got rid of you. Yeah, sorry, can't really do anything for you. So it was a weird and uncomfortable situation. I mean, sometimes I would give the passwords if I liked the people and they were really stuck. But anyway, so your question: why would
Why?
why would
Why?
people
Yeah.
do that?
Why would we do this?
Yeah, it goes back to, I think, the psychology around fixed mindset and growth mindset. Growth mindset, you're always growing, and you're always growing, and you're open to the growth process, which is not always comfortable. So it's okay. In other words, if you're in growth mindset, failure is okay. Imperfection is okay because you're on a trajectory of learning. Fixed mindset assumes that you basically are born with all the knowledge you will ever need, and you don't need growth. You're supposed to show up in a perfected state. And I think a lot of leaders and in a lot of cultures actually have this idea that I'm supposed to show up perfect. I can't show any imperfection. And now we're just competing for who's most perfect, who's
Right. So
most knowledgeable. Yeah.
people are falling apart under performance pressure, anxiety, like
Yeah.
the need to deliver and show a certain level of knowledge. Yeah, I can see that. So somebody who's smarter than me probably needs to be out of the way so that I'm the smartest person in the room. Ooh, such a dangerous move, right?
Imagine you're in a meeting and you need to impress people, and someone else is showing up as smarter than you. They have more answers. They know more things. What if what if they know things that prove you wrong in public, in front of other people? Um, what if they have employees start to doubt you because you don't know enough? So there's this thing, we talk about this a lot when we talk about cognitive science, the Dunning-Kruger effect. So we've talked about it before on the podcast too. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is this idea that um, you, if you don't know a lot about a topic, you tend to have an unreasonable level of confidence in your knowledge on that topic. So, because you mistake familiarity with expertise. So the best example I think I've ever heard is like, do you know how a toilet works? So most people would say, absolutely, I know how to toilet. No, of course. I said, good. Could you draw a diagram of it? Most people could not. So then do you really know how it works? You think you know how it works. And this is how this operates in most people. They think they know more about something than they actually do. And if you're guilty of this in a certain area, you might be threatened by somebody who knows more.
Mm.
So,
So effectively, you could be threatened by the plumber.
yes.
All right.
Yes. I
So
frequently am threatened by plumbers.
you
That's true. Yes, I find them
well,
very scary. Yeah.
so this is interesting, Chuck. I was working with a client the other day on something similar, and she was asking me, and she has a very, very growth mindset piece, but she was asking me a little bit how to handle some of this. Like, what are the ways to handle this when you have somebody in the room who is essentially behaving in this way? You know, they're talking as if they know how plumbing works. And the place that she came to with how to handle this was really just to lean into curiosity, right? And so really this is the leadership quality, right? To be able to be curious, to really listen. Somewhere somebody who is behaving like that is operating out of fear. So what is the fear, what is the need that this person has in order to relax? And this was interesting because she was thinking, rather than try to be better than them or to show them up, she was just thinking, how do I create safety so that they relax and stop annoying everybody, essentially? And it was really like just being curious and listening was the doorway.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Imagine.
Well, I'm smiling because like we always come back to the coaching approach in these conversations. And
Wow.
the coaching approach usually is the answer. And I would give it to you this way. Like imagine, again, back to the scenario we started with at the beginning of this conversation. Imagine you want me to do a certain thing in a certain way. And maybe you try to persuade me to do it. Maybe you give me the reasons. Maybe you explain it. Maybe you threaten me in some subtle way or not so subtle way. And you still don't get the result you're hoping for. What are most managers likely to do in that situation?
Remove you.
Yeah, well, get rid of me or double down, exert more control.
Right. So now we have
yeah.
now we have copy me on all emails, DM me after every message after every meeting
Right.
as well. Pass by my office. Double down or get rid of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I notice this when I'm coaching leaders and they have some employee that they're having trouble communicating with. Oftentimes it is like, Okay, they're not doing it. I've tried some things. How do I make them? And they start getting, I think it's scary. I mean, they start getting scary. Like, how do I make them? Well, okay, we can go down the fear pathway. You want to scare them? We can talk about ways to scare them. I don't think it's going to work. And this is the thing, it doesn't work. Because what if you're that employee and your boss is doubling down, scaring you, controlling you? What are you going to give them?
Well, it points to something that comes up a lot. And so I know I'm sure you have examples of this in all of your coaching hours as well. Like I will often have, so if it's a sort of a trickier coaching client scenario, coaching a leader, we'll get that question. How do I make them, fill in the blank? Most people, when confronted with the short-term nature of the likely outcome of that, will adjust. But it is true that if no one has ever been challenged or questioned on that approach, there is a sense of, if I can make them, then I have control. I have power. Right? And I think interestingly, what the other side of this, the responsibility part of it, is to actually think through the long game. And I've said this to many leaders. Most leaders can compel other people to do something. The power dynamics that exist within the system you're working in would enable you to somehow, one way or another, get what you want. The question is always, what's the long game and what's the long-term impact of that? Because I can compel you to do anything, exerting my influence or power over you. But am I creating relationship with you? Am I creating goodwill? Or am I trying to be the smartest person in the room? Because the short game of this is, if I'm forcing you to do things to get my way, you'll probably do them for a certain amount of time because you have to get paid and you have to get through your day. You're probably also looking for another job in the background. So,
Yes, this is it. This is exactly, I think, the point that most leaders need to get. You can turn up the heat on control and fear, and you will get short-term results. While you're getting those short-term results, that person is on LinkedIn and whatever those other platforms are where they can submit their resumes to other companies. You're definitely getting the short-term result, and you're getting a very unhappy person that's looking for their
right.
options. So worth noting, right? And that points us to, what can we do instead? So rather than doubling down and exerting more control, what are some of the things that you can do if your objective is to get something done, to get someone to do their job?
Well, as always, we come back to basic coaching principles here, or basic coaching skills and use of those skills.
Mm-hmm.
What could we do? We could get curious. If I want something from you and I'm not getting it, a good first port of call would be to get curious about what's happening. So, Chuck, I know I needed you to be doing this by Friday. I can see it's not happening. What do you need? What's going on? What's happening? What am I missing? What would help you? And any of these would be good starting points, I think, just to get your voice in the room. And now, if I hear from you, I'll actually have better clues about what is or isn't needed. Maybe I'm off target. Maybe I'm pointing in the wrong direction. Maybe you didn't understand my instructions. There's a million ways in which it could go. But I think starting with some basic curiosity would be a first thing I would try.
Yeah, I would concur with that too. I think there's also a sense of employees may be slowing down. They may become like obstacles if they feel like there's a better way to do it, and they're being told to do it the wrong way. So, and I've known this. I've also coached people who are in this situation, and it's very painful for them. They're like, everything points to, we need to do X, Y, and Z, and my boss is making me do A, B, and C instead. Like, I'm actually being told to do the opposite of what I know needs to happen. I've heard that. I can't even tell you how often I hear this. So that employee is like demotivated. They're not going to be your best worker because they know they're doing stuff that's not helpful. You know, they know what the mission is of the organization. They want to honor that mission, and they're being told to do something that may even be the opposite of that.
it's back to the smartest person in the room
Yeah,
analogy. I think that if you think you're the smartest person in the room, your your direction of travel is going to be pretty narrow, right? So I think flipping that on its head, being the most senior person in the room or the most experienced person in the room is not the same as being the smartest.
right.
So I would be encouraging any leader to actually have that as a mindset. Come into a room and go, all right, lots of great minds in here. What are we missing? And again, being curious, how could this be more efficient? What do you know or think that I haven't considered? Let's hear all of those things. I still get to make decisions, but wouldn't it be more effective to make decisions based on 10 inputs rather than one? So I think any leader I'm working with, I would be definitely encouraging them to be asking themselves that question. If I think I'm the smartest person in the room, I may have lost my way. Sidebar. I've been working with a bunch of very young leaders recently, like sort of, we're talking Gen Z stuff. And this is a bit more of a natural standpoint, which is super encouraging. I think that, our generations have sort of grown up with this idea that senior equals most knowledgeable, most powerful, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm seeing a lot more of that with the sort of the 20 somethings these days, the early 30s, much more of a growth mindset and much more of a, when I've become the smartest person in the room, it's time for me to move on or try something different. So there is that sort of that hunger to keep learning and growing. And this is an example of it, right? Like, how can we be more efficient? Well, let's find out what other people have to say.
Yeah. Well, and how can we be in better dialogue? Because it could be that that employee who is in a state of resistance, they just feel like they haven't been heard.
Hmm.
So they may not need to get their way, but they might just need to know that they've been heard. So they think, oh, what I'm being told to do is the wrong direction. If their boss asks them, well, what do you think is the right direction? Then they can actually have a conversation. The boss can say, well, here's a reason why we haven't done that yet. So now everybody's in the know, right? You're not just being told to follow instructions. You know why the instructions exist.
I want to underline something you're saying,
Mhm.
like, ask people.
Yeah,
You can still guide them. You can still say, this is the way I want this to be done. But ask people before you tell them. If nothing, it's respectful. It's respectful to say, your voice does actually matter. I am interested in what you have to say. So,
sure,
to be heard is a basic human need.
it is.
So, ask people.
And also all these organizations want innovation. Innovation doesn't come from the same manager telling the same employee to do everything the same way that they've always done it. Right? So,
Wait, are you kidding? Are you
yeah, I
kidding?
know,
It
right?
doesn't come, right?
It doesn't come from
Huh.
same. I know that might be surprising. But I'm saying something very obvious here. You want innovation, start asking employees how they want to do it. So we can align on the results. Now you figure out how to get those results. I don't have to control it. I mean, obviously, if you need training, you need to understand more about the how. Sure, we can do that, but I don't need to control it because you might have a better way, and I might not have thought of your better way. So again, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room.
You don't have to. And I think also, like, the more we accept that people are different and perform differently and have different needs and so on, the more curiosity and creativity is needed. I think it shows up a lot in the return to office kind of conversations that have been hanging around for the last couple of years. I would definitely sort of see arguments for both sides of it, but I think a lot of the frustrations we see when people are not happy about it is they haven't been asked what works for them.
Mm,
They've been told what should work for them. And for a lot of people, it's just blatantly untrue that somebody who they probably don't even know is making a decision on their behalf. Fully accept, especially for very large organizations, it's way more complex than just should we, shouldn't we. I'm sort of pointing more to the frustration that people feel is
yeah.
that they're not part of the conversation. They're being told what they should be thinking.
Well, and
Not particularly effective.
they're also being told how, like literally being told how their job is best done. So if you know that you can maximize your efficiency by working from home, you know that. and you have a company or a boss that's saying you need to get back to the office, it seems like that person isn't as smart as they think they are.
Yeah, it can feel almost like a criticism of your knowledge of your own abilities, and of course it's bigger and more complex than that, but I think that's the impact, right? And so that could probably be solved or at least softened by just saying, we recognize this isn't true for everybody. We
Mm,
recognize that for some of you, you're probably more efficient working at home than you are in the office, and here's why we want to do this. Again, it's sort of the showing curiosity, showing interest, right? I think there's a way to sort of share these perspectives, or the organization gets to make those calls. It's part of their prerogative. But this sort of coming across not listening, it's again, it's an abuse of power, right? It's not a responsible way of using your power. A responsible way would be to say, I understand this may not work out for you. I understand this may be upsetting for you and it may mess with your arrangements and so on and so on. And here's why we need to do this. I don't know. There's options there, but I think it keeps coming back to the same thing.
I think you and I might have different takes on the return to work, return to office situation. I think it's an example of one size doesn't fit all. And if you say we need everyone to return to office because some people need to, that could suck for a lot of people and it could actually backfire on the company. So,
I don't
yeah,
disagree with that. I don't disagree with that perspective. I don't know that I have an answer for it. I just feel like a lot of why people don't like it is because they don't feel like they get to have a say or they get
mm,
to be heard. And
sure.
often having a say isn't as important as being heard. I could be heard, not like it, but I'll still feel better about it because you heard me.
Yeah, I think that's important too.
I don't
Have the
disagree with
conversation.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the Reddit stories that I was reading as we were preparing for this conversation, somebody was saying, "Hey, we all were told to return to office. Some of us it makes sense. Some of us it doesn't. I was told that I needed to spend more time in dialogue with my coworkers, and that's why I need to come back to the office. But what I'm doing instead of being in those conversations, I'm commuting. I'm on buses and trains. So I'm not talking to my coworkers the way it's intended. And I'm spending an extra two
Mm.
hours in traffic or, in commuting. So I'm not doing extra work like the company would want me to do. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, well, same sort of impact as the over controlling, whatever, limiting overtime or whatever, right? Like people will put up with it until either it improves or they have a better offer. But meanwhile, you're not getting 100% out of these folks. So we keep coming back to this idea of like what does it take for a leader to get curious about what's happening in front of them? If you see people are upset, if you see people are frustrated, that's the responsible part of using your power, right? We can't say it enough. Be responsible with your power.
Being responsible with your power is understanding that people have all kinds of psychology that they showed up to the job with that you're in relationship with. So your employees came to the job with a relationship with power and control. They come to the job ready to project mommy or daddy onto you, whether you like it or not, whether you think you've earned that or not. You're probably going to be mommy or daddy for them in some way, and you're in relationship with that. And so it's not like to avoid it because it's going to happen. It's how do you be responsible with that so that you're not hurting people unintentionally, you're not controlling them beyond the level that you need to, and you're having compassion for them in their process.
Yes, these are all things that are learnable, trainable. Right? I think being able to be present. I think just what is the experience this other person is having? Really, like genuine wonder, genuine curiosity. What is going on for this person? What is happening? What might be happening? And just being mindful that the experience I think I'm having is only my experience. I recently finished working with a leader who kind of blew my mind with this. This was a leader who had 100% like positive satisfaction survey results from a significantly large cohort of people. We're sort of in the hundreds or thousands, like very, very big role. And this was immediately fascinating to me because I think if you're getting 100% results, my first thought is people are so scared of you, they're not going to tell you the truth. I don't think anybody gets 100%. So I was curious. We got curious about it. And it was really interesting when we wrapped up our work, because one of the things that I heard back from this leader was, I didn't know that I wasn't paying attention to people. I didn't know that I wasn't curious about their experience at all. I looked through my lens and applied my lens to everything I see. And really what she was walking away with was this kind of a fascination, a kind of almost like it sounds a little cheesy, but almost like a childlike wonder about what's happening in front of her. And she did learn over time that people were a little bit afraid of her. And this was massively impacting the way they were learning and growing. And it really sort of mattered to her that this idea that leaders bring the weather, leaders have an impact, and that those leaders that follow her will lead how they were led. So she's moved on with this sort of quest to make sure that people feel seen, to bringing some presence and some attentivity to her interactions with people. And she's seeing things shift. So really it's great, right? And she's not really doing things differently structurally, but she's being different. She's being curious. She's being open. She's listening. She's making sure people feel seen and heard. She's still driving the business.
I think she is doing things differently because she is bringing that curiosity. Like here are the questions that showed up for me as I was listening. If I'm that boss, I'm thinking, do people say they love me because they love me or because they're afraid of me? It's a good question to ask. If you're someone who's into loyalty, are you getting loyalty out of fear or are you getting it out of love and respect? Like, where is this coming from? What is driving this? And how am I influencing this? If people are telling me they love me because they're afraid of me, are they afraid of me, because of something I'm doing? Or are they afraid of me because the organization is structured in such a way that this fear just shows up? Like, what is causing this? What is underneath this? How do I be in relationship with it? Because if I'm that leader, I definitely want to be loved and respected, not feared.
Yeah, totally. I think it's also like, it begs the question, and I think this is often an easy one and sometimes a surprising one for leaders. It's like, would you like working for somebody like you? Right? One of our colleagues said this the other day. I thought it was fabulous. It was something like, if I'm leading but no one is following, then I'm just out for a walk.
Yeah.
Something like that. And it's kind of cute.
I like that. Yeah.
So yeah. So, a kind of an important call to action. Power, yes, absolutely. As leaders, you have power, you have influence. Question to be asking yourselves is, are you using it responsibly or not?
And what do you know about what's important to the other person? What do you know about what drives them? If you want to go beyond fear and control, what are their drivers? What matters to them? What are their gifts? Are they getting to use those gifts? Are you leveraging those gifts? Because if you're over controlling, you're not going to get those gifts.
And if you don't know what those things are, that's your homework for this week, folks. Go find out what those things are.
That's your homework. Okay. Find out what the gifts are of the people who work with you. Ask them. That'd be an amazing conversation if you've never had it. What are some of the gifts that you have that maybe you haven't been bringing 100% because we haven't asked?
All right. Well, Chuck, I like this game. This was a good conversation.
Yeah, right. Thank you for not abusing your power in the conversation. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be responsible with my power.
Absolutely.
All right. This has been a good conversation.
It has. All right, everyone. Well, stay safe.
Stay kind.
And stay human.